Welcome back to the broadcast. This is day 3 here in Leuven, Belgium. We are about to begin round 8 of the Blitz action.
Yeah, and it's going to be the Magnus Carlsen show for the rest of today because he's facing the leader in this round, and in the very last round he is facing Hikaru Nakamura, so both of these games are too good to pass up. Sorry, he's not facing the leader, he is the leader, he's facing the second place player Wesley So, who we can see there, who could become the sole leader if he manages to defeat Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces. Not an easy order. Wesley, always hard to read. I can't really tell, is he nervous, is he happy about where he's at? Magnus does look focused, doesn't he?
He does look focused, and as you said, So Wesley is really difficult to read. He always looks just the same whenever we cannot tell if he's happy or sad, worried, or just very relaxed. He always has the same gestures.
Yeah, no reason to be sad for him. He's having a great tournament, and now he is focusing, wondering, what do I do if the guy plays the gioco piano? Wesley has a very stable, very traditional opening repertoire. He plays the Berlin like most of these top guys, and Magnus is going to have to decide if he wants to enter discussions there or by playing 1d4, where Wesley can do multiple things. He plays a Grunfeld, he can play these Queen's Gambit positions as well, combined with a Nimzo, so not an easy guy to catch out in the opening, but I have a feeling Magnus is just going to stick to his guns. Go e4, knight f3, bishop c4, yet again, try to get a tiny edge there. Wesley is proven to be extremely solid though, so it won't be easy.
It seemed as if Magnus was still thinking which opening to choose.
Yeah, not a very motivated handshake there, like, do we really have to start already? He does go for d4, and we get a Slav. Magnus normally doesn't enter the complications with knight c3, dc4, or e6. Plays a slower line, e3, bishop g4. That typically leads to white having the two bishops, while black has a rock-solid structure. Knight h4 is working on that project. He's trying to catch this bishop. And it is all highly theoretical territory. Both these guys look bored executing the opening moves. It's all theory. Bishop g2, one of the main moves here. g5 is a very typical way to handle this structure because you don't want to run into white going g5, gaining space here. So you fix this, and then you try to deploy your pieces. Knight bd7. Sometimes you castle by hand, go king f8, g6, king g7. Sometimes you go for dc4, followed by knight d5. It's not easy to gain an advantage here, but Magnus Carlsen has something he normally enjoys, the two bishops and a board full of pieces, so he can play slowly and try to build on that. He castles kingside, which I'm not sure. Yeah, after going bishop g2, that's probably what you do, but very often in these lines you see white going for bishop d2 and long castles. Wesley So still seems to be in book, doesn't really hesitate about any of his moves.
Yeah, he hasn't used almost any time. Wesley So still has more than 5 minutes. With the 2 seconds increment, he managed to build up some time there, while Magnus Carlsen has used at least half a minute.
One funny thing about this line that you normally have this Mexican standoff here between the two queens. Neither side wants to capture because queen b3, ab improves white structure, while queen takes b6. Both ab and knight takes b6 tend to help black. After knight takes b6, white is forced to break the tension here, which he doesn't really want to, and ab gets the rook into play. So typically neither side is going to take, and we see Wesley now avoiding the queen exchange actively by going queen to c7. This is preparing another typical move, knight to b6, forcing white to reveal what he wants to do with this tension. Because cd5, even ed5, normally this clarification helps black. Well, if white goes c5, this would be nice if he had time to build up an attack here, but normally he's too slow and black gets counterplay with either e5 or b6. So pretty standard stuff.
It looks as if he would be looking at the white king, but I believe that knight takes g4 never works. It's only a check on h2. The g2 bishop will defend the white king very well, so that's just something to check, but it doesn't work.
No, Magnus has to decide if he,
e4, knight takes e4 is on the board, knight takes e4, d takes e4, and after bishop takes, this position is opening up for the pair of bishops.
Yeah, Carlsen won a very similar structure against Nakamura in London a while back, where he didn't get much out of the opening, but then later managed to simplify the position by going d5 and exploit his pair of bishops. But in general, this structure is supposed to be extremely solid for black, so still a lot of work for the world champion to make something happen. He has to worry about his h3 pawn, so he retreats his bishop, also preparing d5 without having to be concerned about knight to c5. Not so clear to me how black should arrange his pieces. It would be nice to have time to bring the knight to either h4 or f4, but if you start this journey, you have to be very, very sure the opening of the center does not kill you long before the knight arrives on h4.
It might kill you. It seems to be fast. d5 is in the air, so he castles kingside instead of knight f8.
Yeah, he gets his king out of the way, which is sensible, but now, of course, he's a long way from getting this knight to its best square. And feels like Magnus, with his very timely e4, has managed to create a bit of an initiative. Still, I hesitate to say he's better because I'm not sure how realistic it is to break through in the center here. But it's a little harder for black to maneuver. You gotta keep an eye on the g5 pawn, else such a maneuver would be nice, but I don't know how to implement that. It's not obvious where this knight is going. On b6, it can always be bothered with a4, a5. So Wesley correctly decides to wait, go rook e8. And while Magnus probably is not in a hurry either, is going to build his position up, put a rook on c1. Yeah, that's what happened. Tiny advantage for Magnus Carlsen, but there is still everything to play for.
The kind of position he loves playing, so I'm sure that he is happy with what he achieved, and he will try to improve his position move by move. This is a slow position, but with space advantage and pair of bishops, this is looking promising for Magnus Carlsen.
Yeah, Wesley would like to go bishop f6, knight f8, knight g6, all these moves, but the reason he's calculating is that after bishop f6, or after any move, frankly, you have to make sure that d5 does not hurt you, and here it does seem like a problem, because cd, cd, the queen is under attack, and both bishops are breaking free. Not sure how Wesley should react to that. Maybe he has to go queen b6 back, offer the exchange of queens. Probably Magnus would be the one to turn it down now by going something like queen c2. Not an easy position to play, and it tells on the clock where Wesley, after blitzing out the opening, is now down to 2 minutes. Has to come up with a plan here. Not an easy thing.
It feels like he should be waiting for white to do something, because with black, it's really, you shouldn't go for moves like e5 or c5, at least not in this position.
Yeah, c5, the b7 pawn is a problem, and e5 just seems to open the position up for the white bishops as well.
Exactly,
Therefore,
there's
yeah,
no active plan
b6.
for black. He goes for queen b6.
And as said, Magnus should avoid the exchange of queens here. Let's say, see if he agrees with that. Doesn't seem like it. He doesn't mind it. He wants to go for the opening of the position with d5 instantly. What does Wesley do? The problem is, if you go for this cd, cd, once again, the white pieces are fully activating. You're not in time to get in a move like bishop c5, which I would really like to play. However, if you do it instantly, c6 is dropping. So it does look like problems. Also, if you go ed, cd, c5, trying to keep things close,
there's CD with
d6.
your idea.
So no, he's in trouble. He probably has to go c takes d5 and try to defend this, but there's too many targets. Bishop a7 might even be a move immediately. But also rook takes d5, intending rook c7, or bishop takes d5.
C takes d5 on the board. He's going for the position you are talking about, but
so many options.
for a pair of bishops, this is a paradise. He can play for on both flanks thanks to having these powerful bishops.
Yeah, I'm glad it's Magnus's decision, because every candidate move that I pointed out makes a lot of sense to me. Rook c7, rook d5, bishop d5, bishop a7. He goes for rook d5. Probably that's the one you have to calculate least. You just keep your initiative, planning rook c7. Also hinting that you might just take the pawn.
Also on a7, you can grab a pawn. Bishop a7 could be a threat as well. So many things in the air. Not easy for Wesley so to hold the position.
Yeah, I believe it might be beyond repair already. And Magnus, yeah,
Bishop
has shown
f6.
superior understanding. Bishop f6 is a good move. Targeting b2. But rook c7 looks terribly strong. For example, when all these guys are falling, and if white can keep one of his b pawns.
Bishop
it's
takes
gonna be big trouble.
a7 was
Yeah,
the move
just
of
as
Magnus
strong.
Carlsen.
The point is bishop b2, rook d1, with a very unpleasant pin. Bishop a7, you have to make sure b6 doesn't hurt you, but it does not seem to be the case here. Just rook d1 anyway.
Wesley played knight e5, but
Yeah, well,
this is just a pawn down.
It is desperation. Of course, he's going to try to put up a fight, but Magnus has many ways to roam. This could already be one of them, if I'm not blundering. No, I don't think I am.
Because rook d7, you want to
Maybe I am
play...
blundering. I wanted to give a check and another check. g6.
Might work.
Bishop e3. Yeah, that should be good enough.
Yeah, I think he's going for it. Now it's 2 pawns up for the world champion. It's doubled b pawns, but still, one is enough of them to promote it. With the help of the pair of bishops, it shouldn't be difficult.
Yeah, very smooth positional victory by Magnus Carlsen. That's what he does. He makes things look almost effortless. I'm not quite sure where things went wrong for Wesley. I have a feeling queen c7 might have been too optimistic, and after e4, Magnus managed to consolidate his pair of bishops.
In the meantime, Vishy Anand drew against Levon Aronian. That means that Aronian has now 14.5, and Vishy as well on 14.5. They are sharing 3rd place.
Yeah, if Wesley loses, he joins them? Or no, he's half a point ahead of them.
He's still
already.
half a point ahead of them.
Okay.
But many games left. This is round 8 today. We will have 1 more game today, and tomorrow 9 more rounds of Blitz chess.
What happened here? He played knight d3, and Magnus decided, to my small surprise, against rook c8, decided it's not necessary. Just went rook d1, pinning this knight, so bishop b2 is impossible. And Wesley goes knight b4, which allows white to keep both his extra pawns after takes, and bishop d4, for example, intending bishop c3. Yeah, this is a walk in the park for the world champion. 2 bishops, 2 extra pawns. Pas de problème.
It seems that Caruana's bad day is continuing. Vladimir Kramnik has quite a lot of an advantage against him in this round.
Carlsen plays bishop e4, same story, just restricting this knight on b4. Can't jump here or there. Wesley's going to go bishop f6, bishop c5, and he
Wesley
resigns.
so resigns, so Magnus Carlsen increases his lead to, that will mean how many points? 16.5 for the world champion, and Wesley so still on 15 points. So that's a bigger gap now, 1.5 points. Can we see Kramnik Caruana?
We certainly can.
If it's still going on.
Vladimir Kramnik with white is up in exchange for no compensation, which
Exchange and even
I can
2
spot.
pawns.
Yeah, this looks like resigns. Rook g6, for example, c6, rook c6, rook e5 seems pretty strong. And he's done something different. He's just going for the kill immediately with rook e5, queen
this
e5,
is
queen f8. This ends the game.
Over. That means a very bad day for Fabiano Caruana, who has lost almost all his games today.
Yeah, Fabiano's very on and off in Blitz. In Paris he did well. Before that he was known as a bad Blitz player. Had some good outings. He had this match against Hikaru where he did quite well. But overall his bad days still outweigh his good days when it comes to Blitz.
What about this position between Wesley Topalov and Hikaru Nakamura? An endgame with 2 pawns against 2, but ooh, 2 pass pawns, connected pass pawns, but now everything has changed. No, this is now a piece up. What happened there?
Looks like it should end in a draw. Black will not be able to hold on to the f4 pawn, but he should be able to stop the white c pawn.
Exactly, and you can't win rook and knight against rook, so once the pawns disappear, that's just a draw.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Hikaru is going to try with the rook and knight, but I believe there's very limited winning chances here. King e4. It's just a draw. Let's see how Wesley handles it, how it concludes. But yeah, there is not much to hope for here. Hikaru's going to continue a bit. He's probably going to be able to pick up the h6 pawn and then try to win rook knight versus rook. But rook knight versus rook is really not a very tough defensive assignment. It's basically don't blunder the rook, don't get your king stuck in any corner, and there is not much that can go wrong for you.
Yeah, there we have it on the board, rook and knight against rook, which is a draw, but Hikaru can try some tricks. You can always step into a fork as white.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by Veslin's defensive technique to keep his rook far away from the king. I normally try to keep them next to each other, so it's harder to blunder the rook to any knight forks. But of course, it doesn't really matter. As long as he avoids knight forks, there is zero way to make progress. And of course, both players know this. Hikaru is going to continue a bit, but there is very, very little you can do. Well, at least he's gained one rank. Was it a file? Doesn't really matter, because there's no more pawns. And Hikaru is doing whatever he can to create problems.
I thought for a moment he stepped into a fork, but the black rook was also hanging, so it doesn't matter.
No, there's just not much to do. The rook stays on the e-file, cutting off the black king, and in order to free his king, you would have to maneuver the pieces to
That
move
was a funny move. He was about to move the rook on the e-file, and then he decided for rook h1.
Maybe he was just teasing Hikaru, pretending that he was going to blunder a knight fork, but then changing his mind. Knight e3, but king b6, yes. It's just nothing you can do. This is another effective defensive technique. Keep the knight pinned.
Some checks, and then he can go back to the pin if there's no knight check.
He's managed to complicate his task a little bit. If the knight gets to d5, the king is going to feel a little alone. But you need a lot to happen, as mentioned, in order to lose this. Now, after rook a7 check.
You have to go to the back rank.
Yeah, Veselin. He's playing with fire a little bit here. His rook on g5 doesn't look ideal. Position is still a draw. But
He might lose it if he continues like this.
There's really big margin for error here. And king f4, rook anywhere, yeah. Hikaru does continue. I'm not sure how close they are to the 50 move situation, and if there's going to be an arbiter that would end the game, then I still don't know the rules. I believe the arbiter can end the game by themselves whenever there's a threefold repetition or a 50 move thingy, but I'm not 100% sure. Hikaru keeps trying, but yeah, he's starting
he
to
had a better
run
position
out of
15
tricks.
minutes ago. I mean, 15 moves ago.
Does not seem unduly concerned. Once again, this defensive technique of pinning the knight. Yeah, king e5, rook a5 check. There is very little progress to be made. We see Veselin's manager, Silvio Danilov, sitting there in the first row, but he seems bored. He's pretty sure his pupil, not really his pupil anymore, but Veselin is not going to lose this. Chewing his gum, very relaxed, and Hikaru is thinking, okay, what possible trick could there be? How can I make this guy blunder his rook? But it does seem like an uphill battle.
Yeah, our Chess24 community in the chat announced a minute ago that it was still 16 moves to go. I believe that they are approaching move 50. We may see an arbiter stopping the clock, if that's the case.
Yeah, also normally you try for a while in these situations, but then at some point when you see you're not making any progress, you do agree to a draw, you give up. Of course, he's entitled to play on for as long as he likes. You can never lose, and there are some winning chances. So Hikaru should keep trying, but it doesn't look like he's getting anywhere. Now, at least, he managed to get the rook cut off along the h-file, which is still not enough, but Veselin is trying to get into some trouble again. He's going to have to extricate himself out of it. Still a draw, but with the king on h2, you feel a lot less safe than with your king wherever it was before.
They must be about to reach move 50.
I believe the biggest name player to ever win this was Magnus Carlsen against Erwin Lamy in Wijk aan Zee a while back. It tends to end in a draw. Kasparov once won it against Judith Polgar, but he started from a very advantageous position with the king already cut off. And here, now there's mating nets all over the place. I'm not sure, isn't knight f3 check there? Maybe I'm seeing the position wrong. But, it's check, that helps.
According to our friends on Chess24, it has been already 60 moves, so Topalov could claim the draw.
Yeah, doesn't seem to want to, but normally you wait until you're in real trouble, until it's like mate in 2, and then you check. Maybe we've made 50 moves, let's try to claim a draw. But this position objectively is still
again
equal.
the funny rook move.
Yeah, that was fine too, though. Hikaru shaking his head. He's, of course, aware that this is still a drawn position. But what can you do? Very annoyed that there's still no mate. What else do you need? The guy puts his king on h3 already, and I still can't mate him. Veselin seems very happy with that defensive stance. He doesn't even want to free himself there. And draw agreed.
Finally agreed to a draw.
Solid job by Veselin Topalov. I'm assuming that was the last game of the round, since it took around 132 moves. Yeah,
it
so
was,
let's
and
check the standings.
the results we have already announced that Vishanan drew against Levon Aronian. Topalov Nakamura also draw, and Magnus Carlsen managed to beat Wesley so he increased his advantage to 1.5 points, so he is leading with 16.5, while Wesley So has only 15 points, followed by Levon Aronian and Vishy Anand on 14.5.
Yeah, in the last round of the day, which starts in around 10 minutes, we have the big matchup between Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen, even though Hikaru is not having a great tournament. Those are considered world's 2 premier Blitz players, so we're gonna stick with this one and come back to you in less than 10 minutes to watch the final action of the day. Stay tuned. Thanks a lot for watching.